So Quentin, and this is how it works. I ask the questions because I'm not as intelligent as Quentin. Quentin then gives you the wealth of knowledge that he has inside of his head, and that's actually what you're listening to, not me meandering on aimlessly to talk about these weird things. So for me, right, as someone that doesn't spend all his life looking at applications, what is application modernization? I understand traditional stuff, right? Back in my days in Rhodesia, I built applications, right? I've actually back in the 90s, right? Because I'm that old, yeah. Yeah, I feel like the curious case of Benjamin Button, right? Going back in time, right? I'm not getting older physically, I'm getting younger, except that my beards are crazy. Anyhow, so traditional applications. I open up Visual Studio, I build this executable that gets deployed with some .NET stuff, and there's a config file that points to a database, right? And that's one way of building it up. Well, I've built an application, a web application that's running on top of IIS, and it's using CGI bin and weird other PHP things, right? And on an application server. And then I've got a database server at the bottom that I write stuff to, right? So I've got 3 servers that delivers an application to an organization. And traditionally, people would complain and then stuff like IOPS comes in because SQL is not performing fast enough because we've grown from 20 to 200 staff and I can't scale and I'm stuck with this weird application. So that's my understanding of what traditional applications are. Today, we're talking about application or web application modernization. What is that, Quentin? How do we approach that?
So I think you've got it spot on, right? I think a lot of our customers, a lot of ISVs out there are still running that 3-tier architecture, right? So they're looking at, like you said, a database server, some sort of web hosting in the middle, and maybe a thick client even on the front end of that. Or they're running some sort of JavaScript front end on top of an API. And their issues are always scalability, reliability, those kinds of things, right? So a modern application is essentially one where you're moving away from having a traditional. You're not really changing your architecture.
Quentin,
in that you.
Quentin, do I have to move the slides, or are you going to? Are there slides?
I'll move the slides.
You'll move the
I'll
slides.
move the slides. Okay. I just want to talk a bit before I start.
All right. Okay.
Okay. So essentially, in a modern application, you're still in the 3-tier type architecture, but the platform on what you're developing is different, and that the platform that runs your code is different. So you mentioned IIS. Yes, IIS. Well, IIS sort of goes away, right? You mentioned SQL Server. Well, SQL Database as a Service comes in from Azure. But essentially today, our customers have all of our customers, everybody. I mean, retail, every single industry, every vertical out there in business. Is today a software house. They have to have an application that's customer facing. Most of them have a mobile application. I mean, after COVID last year, e-commerce is it's the #1 go-to platform. I mean, one of our customers, their e-commerce store ranked 22nd in the country. And after COVID in April, when the first lockdown started relaxing, their e-commerce store shot to #1. And that has stayed since September. Even after all the stores have opened, their e-commerce store is still the most performing store. So customers are interacting with us in an electronic and digital way, and we're interacting with our own business through internal applications, right? So we need to make sure that we make these things scalable, reliable, and all of those things. So that is what a modern application is. It is reliable, scalable, and open, right? And you can get data from it and that kind of thing. And then, of course, you have your B2B portals and API management and that kind of
thing. Is this where we talk about that word that I hate most in the world, Kubernetes?
Not yet, but yes.
Oh, not yet.
At some stage, not yet. But at some stage we will, because as I said, the platform is changing. Traditionally, you would have a LAMP stack, so you'd be running Linux, Apache, Mongo, and Python or something like that on top of that, and or you'd have a Windows stack, so you'd have IIS on SQL Server, on Windows Server, hopefully something above 2008 or 2, or even 2003. But so that's the traditional environment you have. Now those that does lift and shift to the cloud through infrastructure as service, but a modern application takes away that underlying operating system component of it and allows you to innovate at an accelerated pace on top of the platform, which is looked after by a cloud provider.
So we have a question. Are you allowed to divulge who that online store was?
No.
I don't think we can because it's in India with it. So Mandla, sorry about that, but we can't really divulge that sort of information. So, Quentin, you were talking about some weird and wonderful. It's a dialect of English I don't quite understand. But did you talk about microservices? So I understand a macroeconomy, right? Or microeconomy, microservices. It's a weird word for me. So is that to slice and dice everything up into small sort of
so it's
container things, right?
It's container things. That's right, Al.
Container things.
So microservices is one of the modern architectures you get out there. It's also most likely a cloud native architecture. And one of the things about microservices is it works well in an enterprise, but not everybody needs to go microservices. Microservices, although very nice and fancy, they can add complexity and difficulty. And actually, two things that I did want to mention around application modernization has to be that it's not just about modernizing your application. You also need to modernize your processes. So you have to be looking at things like automation and instrumentation fundamental, because those are going to drive your success in a complex world of microservices or whatever architecture you're moving to. But we're actually jumping the gun because that's like coming in a few slides.
But we've got 36 slides, Quentin, to get through, and we've only got so much hours to talk, right? Oh, by the way, this is a full 3-hour workshop. It's not a 45-minute webinar.
so I'm used to 3-hour workshops. I'm always talking and I'm always talking to myself.
But if you stick around till the end, you might win a free workshop with Quentin, right? And you can tell all your friends that you've met Quentin de Kock, and they, oh my word, that sort of thing. Anyhow, talking about the customer experience, right? So the user experience, the heuristic evaluation of building an application that you can actually modernize so that it can scale. It's like, I like to sound intelligent in meetings. Always say, can it scale? It's one of the top 10 tips to sound intelligent in meetings.